We can choose how we want to utilize AI in the system by going to Intellect Preferences. Under the Radiograph tab, there's many selections. If we turn them all off, then the acquisition will be very fast and we'll just shoot, and this will act like a normal DR system. But we can enable many AI processes to happen that makes our job easier. First of all, this in-acquire processing we're not going to cover in this video. That's a new feature, not yet available for all panels that we support, but it will help the technician get better position shots, but we'll talk about that later. A central thing which we highly recommend should be turned on for any system is the anatomy, labeling, and gross rotation. This will look at the image, the AI will determine what the anatomy is and will automatically label it.
Right stifle, lateral. Left carpus, DP.
It will also be rotated in case the panel was held sideways or upside down. Another very useful thing is to turn on voice announce anatomy. So as you shoot with the DR system, you'll hear it voice announce left lateral hock, for example. So you're just sure that it got everything right. If you hear that it mislabeled something, you can go correct it, but it's almost never wrong. The next feature is the AI can automatically crop the image. So that is going to crop away the collimator shadow, usually a good feature to have turned on. Next, we could do automatic calibration if applicable. This is primarily for equine shots of the foot, where the foot is stood on the Metron block, and then the calibration features of the block will be automatically found by the AI system. There'll be no work needed by the user to then have accurate measurements available. The next feature is automatic measurements. So this again is primarily for the equine hoof, but also now for small animal, measuring hearts, stifles, other things for small animals as well. The automatic measurements take some time. They maybe take 10 seconds or so per image. So this is a choice. You may want to turn this off during acquisition and come back later and do the measurements, which we'll show you how to do. So this is where you can start making some choices like that, depending how fast you want to work around the animal shooting the images. We can then turn on voice criticism of positioning if applicable. So for certain images, for example, the DP shot of the equine foot, the system can voice announce poor alignment if you weren't aligned well with the bony column of the leg. But if you don't want that to happen, you just leave this off. And then finally, we can turn on automatic report generation. So if a report is available for that type of image, it will be automatically created and placed in the study alongside the radiograph that you just took. So all this automation can happen automatically with hands off, with no effort from the user, right inside the acquisition loop. The only question you want to ask yourself is, do you want this all to happen, which may take 10 or 15 seconds, or do you want to turn off some things and have it go faster in acquisition? We would recommend always leaving these two on. They probably only take an extra second or so in the acquisition loop, so there's really not a penalty for having them turned on. It's the measurement functions which can take 10 to 15 seconds, so you may want to think about those. Now in the Acquire screen of Metron, if you go to the Intellect Engine icon here and click on it, you'll see that right in the Acquire screen we have a repeat of these settings. So you can set them once and for all under Preferences, but you could on the fly from one image to the next as you're acquiring, you could come in here and change what you want to have the AI do. So you don't do this too often, but if needed, you don't have to leave acquisition to go change these settings. You can do it right here. So let's turn off all the AI features just to show you how a plain traditional DR system would work. If we then fire an X-ray, it comes into the system. It's happily right side up. If the panel had been held sideways or upside down, it would be rotated, and you'd have to come and use these tools to rotate it like a normal DR system. It's also not labeled, like what is the anatomy, so we could come here manually and say it's a right foot lateral. When we do that, it re-image processes, because each image, depending on the anatomy, is image processed a different way. So if you really want the best quality image, you need to set the anatomy correctly. So that's what you would do with a normal DR system. Then you could see there's a collimator shadow up at the top, so we could come and we could manually crop this image to get rid of that. Okay. So that's more or less what a regular conventional DR system is like. Now let me, in contrast, delete that, put this back to unlabeled. Let's go into our settings and let's turn on automatic enable, automatically label the anatomy and rotate it. Voice announce, let's automatic crop. These three things. And now we'll go and shoot an X-ray again. And if you watch, it says acquiring image. You'll see it auto-label.
Right front foot lateral.
It reprocessed it, and now it's cropping, and it cropped off the collimator shadow, and now it's finished. So with a couple extra seconds, you now have a very smart DR system, which can outperform any other DR system on the market today in these terms. And so it's really nice. And we can go further than that. Let's clear this. Let's unlabel. Let's go in and let's turn on automatic calibration, automatic measurements, voice criticism, and report generation. And now let's go back and shoot an image. It comes in, it's auto-labeled right front lateral. It is auto-cropped for the collimator shadow. Now it's being calibrated. You see the markup on the block down at the bottom of the image. And now we're doing the auto measure task. So we're measuring this, and we're going to measure 10 standard measurements. There, we're finished. So it's really not very long, unless you're doing a yearling sales type of situation. You may want to have this all enabled in the acquisition loop, because it's pretty quick. But if you want to work around the horse because you have to take 36 shots for, pre-purchase or something, then you turn it off and you do it later on. Now, by the way, we're showing one number that was measured. But if we go into the edit screen, we can see that there's actually 10 measures all here, which we can turn on and off if we want, depending on what we're interested in, right? So it's been totally auto-measured with no human intervention, and it's done in a very unbiased way, so it's really nice. And if we come out to the study, we'll see here's a report that was automatically built. It's a 3-page PDF. On the first page, we feature showing the palmar angle, where it lies relative to a large population of horses. This is a distribution colored by quartile. So we see this palmar angle of about 1 degree is in the lowest quartile compared to a large population of horses. So it's a horse you could consider sort of low on the heel. Then all 10 numbers are given that we measure, a cartoon explaining what they are, and again, showing where each measurement is relative to a large population of horses. And on page 3, we do a specialty measurement where the AI has traced this curve, and we compute the area under the curve to find a measure of how concave or how flattened the pedal bone is, and we plot that versus a trend line for the age of the horse. So he's a little bit flatter pedal bone than the average 15-year-old horse. This is a useful metric perhaps in a pre-purchase exam. And there's a clickable link here you can click to jump to a reference to read more about this particular measurement if you're not familiar with it. Okay, so the AI system adds a ton of value. The only question is, do you want it turned on during acquisition or you want to do it later? Because let me show you, if we want to do it later, we just come into the edit panel and we find again there's the Intellect Engine icon here, and under here we can manually say let's auto calibrate the image, and that's going to run the AI to auto calibrate it and find the block. Let's auto measure the image. So if you don't choose to do it automatically as part of acquisition, you can come in after the fact and run all the AI tools manually from the edit screen. For example, we could regenerate the report. And now the report was added to the study. And just to also make one more point, if we thought the AI made a mistake, we could go into guided markup and we could say, you know, it didn't measure the palmar angle correctly. This is the correct measurement. Now, actually, this is wrong because actually the AI did it properly, but let's just say. So you can correct things, of course, in the system, and then you could come back and regenerate a report with that corrected. So you're not held hostage by any mistake the AI might make. You are in total control. Now let's look at that latest report. This report shows, oh, palmar angle is 13 degrees. Well, that's rather high. That's up in the highest quartile. And here are the other measurements. So you are in control. You can edit all the results that are done by the AI if you so choose. So it's a very powerful system. So we place the hoof on the Metron block, centered on the center line of the block for a lateral. And we suggest that you use the panel in the taller than wide configuration, not like this, but upright like this, because we want to capture all the way up to the fetlock joint if possible. Place the panel on the floor, generator on the floor, so everything is nicely lined up. A generator about 36 inches away, and take the shot.